All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jeannie Hannon. I am the Director of Programs for A Time to Heal Cancer Foundation. I'd like to introduce our speakers for today, Dr. Deb Carlson and Dr. Mindy Barna. Deb Carlson, PhD, is a dedicated leader in higher education and a passionate advocate for resilience and healing. She currently serves as president of Nebraska Methodist College and holds a PhD in educational psychology, with her dissertation focused on resilience. Nearly 20 years ago, she helped the A Time to Heal program by writing and teaching the original resilience chapter and conducting research that demonstrates its powerful impact of the program on cancer survivors. In 2023, she received the Nebraska Inspire Award for Excellence in Education, recognizing her leadership and community contributions. Dr. Carlson brings deep expertise, heart, and a lifelong commitment to empowering others through education and resilience building. Mindy Barna, EDD, MSN, RN, has dedicated her career to the fields of nursing and higher education. She is the Dean of Nursing at Nebraska Methodist College. Dr. Barna's professional journey has resulted in a passion for research, particularly in areas critical to the academic community. She is deeply engaged in studying nursing student retention and spiritual well-being. Dr. Barna is serving in her second term on the Academic Resilience Consortium Steering Committee. In addition to her nursing degrees and doctorate in higher education, she holds a certification in college student well-being, trauma, and resilience. Today, Dr. Carlson and Barna will be speaking on the power of resilience in your cancer journey. Welcome, Dr. Carlson and Dr. Barna, and thank you for speaking on this great topic. I'm going to now turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Jeannie. We're excited to be here and talk to you. And thanks to all of you for logging in this morning. I know Saturday morning is a hard time, especially depending on what you did last night. I know many of you went to the concert and hope you enjoyed the concert downtown, but either way, you're making choices, and this is a great choice in your resiliency journey. So today, what you're going to learn is this topic is going to explore how individuals facing cancer, but really you can learn it's for everybody. We specifically target it to cancer patients, but when you learn and you listen of all the different tools and all the different things, it really does apply to everybody in their just journey. It harnesses inner strength through resilience, hope, and healing practices.
We're also going to talk about some research, and the research will highlight how spirituality, gratitude, self-care, and other strategies can help you both emotionally and physically find well-being during your cancer journey.
With inspiring stories, insights, this talk celebrates the human capacity to find meaning, connection, and courage, even in the darkest moments. So the day you found out about cancer, that curveball, you're going about your life and all of a sudden you get this curveball, and it's the moment that you hear you have cancer, that your journey as a cancer survivor begins. And it's more than just a medical experience. It shakes your identity, your routines, your relationships, your hope. It shakes all of that up. And with the Time to Heal program, what I love about it is there's many things I love about it, but I love that it starts with patients telling their cancer survivors telling their story. So they start with telling their story. And the first time that I heard cancer patients telling their story for the very first time, many of them couldn't even make it through because it's hard. You start to tell that story and all those emotions come back and they start flooding in. And you tell this story, and many times it's just they have to put it on hold. They can't make it through. But as they keep telling their story and their stories over and over again, what happens is the story loses power over them and the emotion goes out, and they're able to look at it cognitively from a different way. And they start to see that their own power is in there and how strong they really were. So yes, it was a tough journey, but I reached out to my friends, or I did this, or I made it through. And sometimes that's just enough, so that story becomes very important. And so be gentle. So be gentle with yourself and be real with yourself. And although it's your story and all these stories are different, we can see our struggles in those who have gone before us. And so we learn from them. And we did all this research on a Time to Heal program, but when Kay and Steph and I talked, it was like, it's more than just us. it's the cancer survivors themselves that help each other because they're learning from their own stories and they're learning about themselves and their strengths, and they feel less alone. But they also start to see that there's wisdom, that they have this wisdom, this little this wise little woman inside of them or wise little man inside of them, but they also gain what wisdom from everybody else around them. So resilience, it's more than just bouncing back. And when I ask people about what it is, and they tend to say bouncing back, but in reality, you're never going to be the same. And none of us are. When we go through trauma, when we have setbacks in our life, we're not the same. There's only one way through, and that's moving through it. And because what happens is that what happens to us becomes part of us. So when bad things happen, when good things happen, when we read books, when we talk to people, when we take classes like this, or we do things, it becomes part of us. And resilient people find healthy ways to integrate what happens to them, whether good or bad. They integrate that into their life in a healthy way. And it's the good thing about resilience is it's not just a trait, it's a skill set. And because it's a skill set, you can learn it and you can build on it and you can build that strength. And why that's important is because that mind-body connection, and we're seeing more and more research on how important that is. It's not just your mind is over here and your body's over here and you take care of your body, but it's also, you need to take care of your mind too. And you need to learn how to, just as you learn how to take care of your body, take care of that mind also. For example, one of the research that I just happened to come, was fascinating to me because as I get older, I'm having more gut issues. So I'm looking at what are the research that shows on, well, how can I help this? Because I used to be able to eat everything I want. Now I can't, and it's very frustrating. So I'm reading this research on this, and this came out of the University of Southern California. And they were teaching patients to resilience and teaching them resiliency tactics. And then they measure their brain activity, and then they measure their gut health. And what they found is that the students that scored higher, or the patients that were higher in resilience, had less inflammation in their guts and that had healthier gut barriers, which is pretty cool that you think that you can learn some of these tools and it's going to affect your physical ability too. So that link to that mental and physical well-being is there. It's very powerful. So when we talk about the journey, the story is yours, but the journey is also yours. And you become bitter or better along the way. And it really is your choice. And I think that's what shocks a lot of people, is that when they're stuck in that, and especially when they're stuck in that bitter part of it, and when you tell them it's your choice, they get angry. Because it's like, no, you don't understand. This was done to me. I had nothing to do with this. This was to me. And you can get bitter or you can get better. And I love this quote from Hemingway that says, "The world breaks everyone, and afterwards, many are stronger in the broken places. So to be strong in the broken places is to be resilient." And it's more than just mere survival, more than just endurance and getting through it. It's endurance with direction. And again, it's your decision. So you're going to go through it anyways. So you might as well go through it and reframe it. And by reframing it, it's really looking at your thoughts and your feelings. So you look at your thoughts, how that affects your feelings, and how your feelings then direct your action, and then that directs your results. So it's all like interconnected, and you can see this pathway. And when you come across something and you actually stop and you have that researcher mind and you actually follow it through, it's pretty fascinating. And I'll give you an example. So a situation that you might be familiar with. And you tell yourself, I'm exhausted, I'm scared about the future, and I feel like life is on pause. Or unfiltered thought might be something like, I'm broken, I can't handle this, I'm just surviving, I'm not living. That could be for any of us, right? Okay, so you have those unfiltered thoughts, those negative thoughts. This is raw, this is real, and it's okay to name it. And when you identify the situation, okay, this is what the situation is. And then what are the feelings that you attach to that situation? So it might be feelings like helplessness, you get angry, alone, or you might just feel numb, like there's no emotions at all. So when you ask people sometimes, what's the emotions that you attach to that? So I don't have any. And that's real too. So talk about, that numbness. The action might be then you withdraw from others, might struggle to get out of bed, or you might just avoid emotions altogether and just kind of stay in that numb place. So the feeling, then the result is feeling more isolated, powerless, which reinforces then that original thought. So then you just get in this spiral where you're continuously spiraling and you're having the same actions over and over again. And you become bitter because it's like, this is happening to me. I have no power over it. When you realize, yes, you do, you can change that thought. And so again, it's about reshaping this from the inside out. And it's not that toxic positivity that we hear sometimes. It turns a lot of people off when we say like, life is wonderful, because life isn't wonderful sometimes. So it's being real and honest when you reframe it. And a new thought might be, this is unbelievably hard, but I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I'm still trying. And that's strength. And then new feeling starts to take over and you have this flicker of pride. And we call that survivor's pride. If you've read the Time to Heal book, we talk a lot about survivor's pride and getting to that point where you're actually proud that you made it through. So you have this flicker of pride and maybe just a little bit of softness towards yourself. You're not quite so hard on yourself. And you have this tiny ember of hope that things will get better. So you might then reach out to a friend. You might celebrate the small wins, even like just getting dressed during the day. You know, you just got dressed. That's a small win. Or this is my favorite, you let yourself rest without feeling guilt. Because we all need that too. And then what happens, the result, the action is that you have this sense of agency, connection, and a moment that you have this like peace amid all the storm that you're going through. You might feel this sense of just a moment of peace. And that's when resiliency starts to grow. So you build emotional stamina, but you build that gently. And one more thing before I turn it over to Mindy is that it is a habit. It is a habit, and it does take doing things over and over again. To get stronger, you have to do more than just buy the book or attend the lecture or the talk, because we've all done that before where we read this amazing book, and I still have a book on my shelf about weight training. Like, I really want to get stronger. I want to do those muscles. I read the book, I bought the book, I listened to seminars, I listened to things on it, and then I don't do it. Because it's a habit. I have to build a habit. I have to do a strength or do something with it. So today we're going to encourage you to just pick one thing, not something that overwhelms you, but just one thing that you can do as a habit and one thing that you'll do consistently, because that's the key to building a habit, like brushing your teeth. It's just you wouldn't even think about not doing it. You get up, you brush your teeth, you do one thing until it becomes a habit. Habits then become our character. They become who we are. And that's just that person. They just do that all the time. Whenever something negative happens, they just flip it positive, and you can guarantee that that's going to happen for it. So it becomes a habit for them. And it makes all the difference in becoming, again, bitter or better. I once heard that in the military, you know, when you hear those, you know, you see those things and you can almost visualize when the soldiers go through boot camp and they're told to make their bed every single day, and they have to practice making their bed until it's perfect. And I used to think, why do they do that? Why do they focus so much on making that bed? And then I had a military person tell me, and that's because if you start off the day doing one thing, you start to think, hey, I did that. Yeah, I did that. So when I have students that come to my office and they say, I'm so overwhelmed, I have all this studying to do, I have all these papers to write, I don't even know where to start. I said, take a minute and think about what your room looks like right now, your bedroom. Did you fix your bed? No, I can't, because I have all this stuff to do. There's no way I can fix my bed. I got to get this stuff done. So go home and fix your bed. And I said, once you go home and you fix your bed, or maybe you do your dishes, or maybe you clean out one drawer, you don't want to clean out your whole closet. Then you really will take away from what you need to do. But you do one thing, and you do one simple thing for you. And when you do that one simple thing, like getting dressed in the morning, if you're a cancer survivor and you just haven't been able to get out of bed, you just one simple thing, it does build that confidence in you. And like, okay, I did one thing, I feel good. And even if that's all you do during that day, you'll build it, and the next day you'll be able to do a little bit more and a little bit more. So it's creating this tiny rituals. And when I wrote the Time to Heal chapter on that, on resilience, I said, it's like, if you do one thing every single day just for yourself that you feel is indulgent, maybe it's taking a little bit of chocolate every single day, or something that you think it might not be good for you, but you really, really like to eat it. And if you do that every single day, it sends a message to your brain that you're important, you're worth it. And so doing one thing every day, whether it's lighting a candle that you save only when people come over or special guests, do it for yourself. You know, light that candle when you eat at night. Listen to a favorite song. Do something. Write one sentence in a journal. So when we talk about journaling, it doesn't mean that you have to spend all this time journaling. One sentence a day is all it takes. So building those little tiny things in and doing one thing every single day is where resiliency comes into play. So rituals anchor us, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Barna, and she's going to tell you a little bit more and get into some more things that just hook you in, and really hopefully that you'll hang on to at least one thing. So Dr. Barna?
Thanks, Dr. Carlson. So I want to talk a little bit about spiritual well-being and how that can affect resilience and some strategies that go along with it that hopefully you'll find are really helpful. Most people think of spiritual well-being and they instantly think about religion. And although religion and spirituality are closely related concepts, they really aren't the same. In the literature, spiritual well-being is described as a core component to our holistic health. It's part of what would give us our inner peace, helps us feel emotionally resilient, and can help us self-heal, really. In times of stress, uncertainty, chronic illness, spiritual well-being kind of serves as a protective factor that just kind of encompasses all that you're being and thinking and feeling, and helps just kind of develop this inner layer that is protective of you. So before I get too far into spiritual well-being and resilience, I'll talk a little bit about this framework that really helped me understand what spiritual well-being was. And the framework was developed by Paluzian and Ellison, who developed the spiritual well-being scale. The spiritual well-being scale is in a gazillion publications. It's very well known within spirituality and well-being research. So I was working on my dissertation, and I really wanted to know about how spiritual well-being helped students and would help influence their outcomes. And I thought that I would just study one part of spiritual well-being, and that was that existential piece. So I really wanted to focus on the sense of purpose and how that helped students get through different programs in difficult situations. Unfortunately, the chair of my, unfortunately or fortunately, really, the chair of my dissertation committee happened to be also the chair of the theology department. And she was very quick to inform me that I would not be able to study just existential well-being, and spiritual well-being would be comprised of both religious well-being and existential well-being, which ended up being very helpful because I have learned over the years that the two together are very powerful, and you really need to have both of them. One can always be stronger than the other, but having religious well-being and existential well-being is important. So religious well-being is just that dimension that kind of reflects our quality of relationship. It could be with a God or a higher power of some sort of divine presence that's in our lives. It's something that gives us a feeling of support and guidance. It's a connection to something beyond just ourselves. And sometimes that connection can be comfort during hardship. It can also serve as sort of a moral compass when we're trying to make very difficult decisions. But it's not about how often we attend church. It's not how much we donate to a church. It's really just a personal meaning and relationship that one has with something, someone, some power sacred. And then existential well-being, my favorite, is our sense of purpose. It's about meaning and fulfillment in life. And it speaks to us being grounded and how we feel. It speaks to how we interact with others, how we feel about others, how others can make us feel about ourselves. And during a profound sense of loss, illness, and things like that, it can help us reevaluate what gives meaning to our life. So it's an opportunity, when you think about existential well-being and spiritual well-being, it's an opportunity to really reignite a passion and really think about what is driving you and motivating you and what can help you during times of difficulty. There's a lot of research that tells us that spiritual well-being isn't just a comforting concept, but it does contribute to healing and resilience. Research tells us that practices like prayer, meditation, or reflective journaling will help individuals with chronic illness. It helps find hope, it helps find meaning, emotional stability, and it can help develop sort of a psychological anchor that keeps us grounded, that helps us when we're in pain, helps us when we have uncertainty in life, and can really help during a life-altering diagnosis. But it's also can be about how we navigate just day-to-day adversity. It can be linked to optimism, and it can be linked to hope. Those two qualities form the foundation of resilience and personal resilience. So really latching on to optimism and hope is the goal that comes from developing strategies that will improve your spiritual well-being. So I want to take just a minute to ask a couple of questions that I want you to reflect on. And so I want you to think back to a time when you faced a difficult challenge. And as you think about that difficult challenge, think about what really was it that helped you through it. Could have been a belief, could have been a connection to nature. Maybe it was just taking time to pause and breathe. So as we think about those things that helped us through a difficult challenge, those are the meaningful actions that serve as spiritual touch points. It's figuring out what those things are that will help us to recenter and recover. Research tells us that mindfulness, self-compassion, intentional stress management, they're not just mental health strategies, they're deeply spiritual in nature. They promote our presence, they promote kindness towards ourselves, and they help us be conscious and aware of all that is around us, which ultimately enhances our emotional resilience as well. Emotional resilience plays a crucial role for caregivers and professionals, and ultimately becomes not just something that is part of us, but it becomes part of our professional practice as well. So one of the first ways I want to talk about to strengthen spiritual well-being is to intentionally develop a sense of purpose. And that can feel overwhelming just hearing that. And if somebody were to just say, what is your purpose? That can be very difficult to summarize in, a quick answer. So it's something we have to be very intentional about thinking about. It's not something that just happens. We typically have to spend time figuring that out. And you can do this by asking yourself different questions. Some of them are like, what activities give you meaning? When do you feel most alive? What makes you feel useful? What makes you feel fulfilled? It's not thinking about things like, what do my kids want? What does my family want? What does my friend like? It's about what you like. And sometimes when we are caring for others so much and thinking about others all the time, it's really hard to take that time to think about, no, does that make me happy? Am I happy just because I'm watching someone else be happy and they're happy gives me joy, or does it really bring me internally joy to myself? And so figuring out what drives us in that purpose starts with reflection. And so think back to things like, when did you last feel joy, connection? When did you last feel like your contribution made a difference? Another thing you can do when you're thinking about finding purpose is think about the things that you do that time just flies. Sometimes things for me, like doing house chores, time does not move so fast when I'm doing things like that. But when I'm reading a book, I can read a book and an hour is gone in just an instant. So thinking about those things that really just make time pass because you're enjoying yourself, you're enjoying what you're doing, and you're very immersed in what it is. You might find that visiting an old hobby or an old interest is helpful. You might find that trying something new or engaging in a new activity, painting, writing, gardening, crocheting, all different things can spark joy and can awaken a deeper sense of meaning. At Christmas, somebody gave me a gift and they told me when they gave it to me, this is going to require you to stop thinking for a minute and just do it. And it was a little set of watercolors and a book of birds. And the birds were already drawn for me. So you just watercolor the birds. Fabulous thing. But that gift was so amazing for me because it's become something that I do almost every day. I sit down and paint for a little bit because it relaxes me, but it brings me joy. And it's something that I can do just for me. It doesn't matter how terrible the painting is. Most of my arts and crafts are Pinterest fails. But in this instance, there's something about watercoloring, and maybe it's the fact that the colors will blend together and mold and are meant to look a little bit messy that makes me enjoy it so much. But it's just something little. And being able to recognize that something little is important to me, so I'm going to make time for it. There's never enough hours in the day. We have to make time for these things. Another strategy is the environment, and just knowing about how nature can impact us. I grew up in the country, and growing up in the country, I always just wanted to live in the city. There was nothing worse than the country when you're a kid living in the country until you become an adult and you're living in the city and you realize how great that country life really was. But you don't have to go to the country to find nature. There's plenty of nature just outside of our doors. I like the quiet and restorative power that nature can provide us. You don't have to hike a mountain. You don't have to travel far. Just simply go outside. So spiritual connection can be found in these small moments outdoors. You can watch the leaves that are fluttering in the breeze. You can notice the smell of fresh rain when you step outside after it just rained. My daughter would tell us that's the smell of worms and be very excited about it. Or you can step outside and feel the sun hit your face and just give you that sense of warmth. And if you pay attention to feeling the sun hit your face and that sense of warmth, you're going to instantly feel a sense of calmness as well. Researchers have found such a significant link between nature, spirituality, and well-being. Time in natural spaces promotes mindfulness. It helps us with our emotional balance, and it helps us foster a deeper sense of connection to something that's bigger than us. So a simple grounding exercise, the next time that you're outside, take a few minutes. Depending on where you are, that you may need sunscreen or bug spray before you do this, but just find a quiet spot, sit, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and then just be. Think about things like, what are you hearing? What do you smell? What is it that you're feeling underneath of you? Do you feel the breeze? Is it warm? Is it cold? Just give yourself a little bit of that time, and you will be amazed at how much better you feel. 5 minutes, just 5 minutes sitting in nature can do the body a lot of good, body and mind. Another thing somebody once told me was in the dead of winter in Nebraska, we know that it's not that nice outside. And it was dreary for several days, those days when it's like -30 for 3 or 4 days in a row, and you're just like, this is not fun. Someone said to me, well, pick a tree and watch the tree every single day. Just notice the tree every single day and watch what happens to the tree over time. And so every morning when I would back out of my garage to go to work, I would look over at the tree in our front yard. And every day I was thinking, why am I doing this? Nothing is happening. It's still cold. It's still dreary. The tree is still there. There are no leaves. And then slowly spring comes and you see the little buds, and then you see leaves. And now when I'm backing out, I notice like, oh, look at the cute squirrels playing in the tree. The birds are chirping. Just helping focus on that one little thing made me so much aware of everything else that was happening that I might have been missing before. Next strategy is about gratitude and just thinking about what we have and finding ways to be grateful for this. I don't know if you've ever caught yourself in the downhill spiral of wanting all the things. It's very easy with social media and everything at our fingertips. If you Google something, the next time that you're looking at the news, you're getting ads for the thing that you just looked at. So it's constantly in our face of more. If you have kids, then you also hear, I want, or grandkids, I want. One of the best ways to curb that gravitational pull towards wanting more is to take time and think about all that we have, and to be thankful for it. Gratitude isn't just a nicety, it's about mindset. And it can help you transform the way you feel about the world and the things happening to you and around you. And there are a gazillion different ways to practice gratitude. There's all kinds of books and research about gratitude. At my house, we were all kind of struggling during COVID, and we were tired of being cooped up. We were tired of missing our regular activities and interactions with our friends. And the news was not always great to look at. Oftentimes it just brought in more negative. So we started thinking about what can we do to make us feel better. And so we started going around the table every night, and we still do it. Every night, everybody says 3 things that they're grateful for during the day. And I sometimes think of my 3 things as they happen during the day. Sometimes it's as my kids are talking, I'm thinking, oh, come on, Mindy, you better come up with 3 things. And I figure them out then. My husband has a really good strategy in that he waits until he feels like he's getting stressed or anxious at work. And then he stops what he's doing. And that's when he takes 5 minutes and thinks about what are his 3 things. So he always, the kids make fun of him because when we do our 3 things, he always has to get out his cell phone and scroll back to what he was doing earlier in the day to find his 3 things. But it has really brought us together more as a family, and also just helps you think throughout the day, like, oh, that's something that I can be thankful for, and give gratitude for later. So I challenge you to write down something every day. And it doesn't have to be big. I'm talking like a warm cup of coffee. Sometimes just having coffee is what we need, and can help us start our day off right. It could be listening to a friend laugh. It could be watching the sun shine in as you're doing dishes and make a little rainbow on your bubbles. So there's just so many different things that we can think about. When we practice gratitude regularly, we start to train our minds to seek the good, even in the most difficult times. Another thing you could do is write thank you notes. I used to be terrible about this. And even just thinking about what to say when I would write a thank you note sometimes wasn't my forte, but the more I did it, the better I got at it. Once a week, if you write a thank you note to somebody else for something that they did, it could have been challenging you, it could have been teaching you something new, it could have been something that impacted your life years ago. But recognizing someone else also brings us our own value and connection, and can make us feel better, and more whole as well. So gratitude isn't going to change all that's happening to us. It doesn't get rid of hardships. It doesn't necessarily make things that are not good go away. But it does help us reframe our mindset. Think about what's happening to us, maybe in a slightly different way. I think it's Mr. Rogers who would say that his mom would say, like, in times of crisis, look for the helpers. And so that's really looking for, no matter what's happening, what can we learn from the experience? Why could it be happening to us? What can we get out of it that could make us better, stronger, and more resilient? Strategy 4 is about mindfulness and being present in the moment. I had a faculty member once that started her class every day with 3 minutes of mindfulness. She would just have the students clear their desks, sit, and think for 3 minutes. And I can't tell you how many course evaluations I read where students were just so grateful for those 3 minutes of mindfulness, and giving them a chance to just clear space in their mind for what they were about to learn. So it really is about clearing that space rather than focusing on what's happening right now. And you can practice mindfulness everywhere. You don't have to travel to do it. You just start by taking a few minutes out of your day and you focus on your breathing. You just sit there quietly, close your eyes, inhale, exhale, let your attention focus on the rhythm of your breath. And you'll notice as you do this, your mind will start to wander. That's totally normal. You need to give yourself grace and let yourself bring your mind back to the breathing. There's no shame in the mind wandering. It happens to everybody. But take a few minutes and just focus on your breathing. It will calm your nervous system. It reduces anxiety. And it also helps you create a space in time and in a moment that really is meant just for you. Another practice is to unplug, to choose an activity that you can do without distractions. So do something without a TV on in the background, without looking at your phone for a few hours. This could be, or even just a few minutes sometimes. It could be eating a meal slowly and like really tasting every bite and noticing the different textures and feel of the food. It could be taking a walk without music and listening to the sounds that you might not have heard if you had your music in. For me, it's taking a bubble bath in a very hot bath in a very quiet room. But it could even be doing the dishes and, you know, pausing for a minute and just feeling, what do the bubbles feel like on your hands? What does the dishwater feel like? Doesn't have to be anything extraordinary. It could just be moments in your day-to-day life that you can just stop and pause and give a moment for yourself. If you love technology and unplugging isn't your thing, there's also a lot of research coming out that tells us that virtual reality and different mindfulness apps are extremely helpful. I probably would not have been a believer in this had I not been talked into putting on a virtual headset at one point in time. It was actually here at work, and I was transported to a galaxy far, far away where I was just floating in space. It was amazing. So if you're not into unplugging, there are ways to use technology and still get that same mindfulness experience. It's not always bad. My last strategy is about self-care. I think Deb talked about this a little bit too. We play different roles in our lives. You might be a sister, a mother, a brother, a friend, a cleaner, a baker, a driver, all the things. But the saying is true, you cannot pour from a cup that's not full. So we have to make sure that we're finding ways to fill back our cups. And self-care, I think sometimes when people will think of self-care, or in the business industry with your work-life balance and things like that. And sometimes the general thought is, well, that's indulgent or extra or bougie. But it's not. It's a non-negotiable. It's something that has to happen. It helps us stay grounded and it helps us to care for others. So I always like to tell my students, and I would tell you to do the same, think about someone in your life that you dearly love. Think about how you treat that person, and then start treating yourself with that same kindness, attention, and compassion. And it will really make a big difference. You deserve the kindness, attention, and compassion just as much as your friends deserve it. It doesn't cost anything to give yourself self-care. It could be the 5 minutes of relaxing in a bath. It could be taking time to do the virtual reality headset on mindfulness. Just so many different options. One of the things that's most important is to recognize when we talk to ourselves, are we treating ourselves kindly? And just thinking about things and stopping to recognize, wait a minute, if that happened to my best friend, what would I say? So I'll give you just a really simple example would be, I leave work, I stop at the grocery store, I come home and I instantly start making dinner, and I realize while I'm making dinner, I didn't get the ingredient that I went to the grocery store for. I got all kinds of other things, but not the one thing I needed. My mind might instantly go to, you idiot, what were you thinking? But if I was talking to my best friend, I would say, oh, that's totally fine. Your mind is full of all these other things. You have kids to take care of. You have places you have to be. Of course you're going to forget the ingredient. That's fine. We need to make sure we're giving ourselves the same grace. And so that's really hard to do, but really try to catch yourself in negative thought and instantly say to yourself, what would I say to my spouse? What would I say to my best friend? What would I say to my daughter? Those aren't the things that you're going to say to yourself, and it might help you start shifting the way that you think about yourself and the things that you do. When was the last time that you took time for you? Do you schedule time in your life just for you? We know that all the time I'll see something and be like, oh, that would be really nice to do, or that would be fun to do. But those things are fun to do, want to do, they're all just in our brain unless we actually take action and carve out time in our busy schedules to do them. So making sure that you do take time to do what those I'd like to. Make time for the I'd like to. Time will never make time for it. You have to make time for it. And you have to feel okay with making time for those things and not feeling guilty. There's no reason to feel guilty for doing something for yourself. I know I'm a better mother, colleague, spouse, everything when I get a little bit of time to myself each day. So I just want to make sure that you remember that self-care is a non-negotiable. It's something that you absolutely have to do. If nothing else from today, self-care and positive talk would be, I would be so happy if everybody just did those things.
Thank you, Mindy. You can definitely see why Mindy is a rising leader at Nebraska Methodist College, and we're so lucky to have her guiding our nursing students and our faculty. So thank you, Mindy. Appreciate it. I hope you guys realize that, again, it's the small things, and it's not these big overwhelming things. And I had a woman that told me after, we did a similar presentation, and she said, that's great, but you don't understand my life. From moment to moment, she goes, my kids are, taking my life and my work and this, and she kind of described her life. And I go, what if when you're making supper, you turn on music every single time and just make that a habit? Because when kids come in the kitchen and the music's on, it's changing their mindset too. And it was that simple thing, not doing anything different than she already did during the day. She just turned on music every time she made supper. And she said it turned her mind from that to-do list in her mind, like, I got to make sure after the kids are in bed, I do this, I do that, I do that. And she goes, I focused on the music and making dinner. And she goes, it changed my whole life. Just focusing on just adding one thing, turning on music. So it's those simple things that make a difference. And sometimes when you hear this and you're thinking, hey, but it won't fit in my life, talk to other people, find out what they do. I'll never forget a student that I had, because we learn the most from our students, not, that they learn from us, but we learn from them too. I was teaching at UNL, and I had a woman that taught in inner city schools, and we were talking about resilience and talking about the power of, Mindy had a great example of spending a few minutes in quiet. She said, yeah, that won't work for my students. My students are coming from the projects. She goes, they walk in, and she goes, they see people on the streets getting killed. They're dealing with all of this stuff, and they walk into my room. And so what she does is she has them scream as loud as they can and shake their bodies. And so they're screaming as loud as they can, they're shaking their bodies. And she says, and then all of a sudden they all start laughing. And she says, so it changes their mindset. So whatever it is to change your mindset, sometimes it's that quiet meditation that works for us. Sometimes it's screaming, and I can imagine our security if we did that. Yeah, but I'd like to try that in a class sometime. I think that'd be hilarious and fun. But it's changing the mindset any time, but it's those small things. So again, like Mindy said, self-care, so important. One small thing that you can do, take that bubble bath, light that candle, do one thing for yourself. And it's those small things that have a huge impact. And it took me a long time in my life to realize that, because I was always looking for the big thing. What's that big thing I can do to change my life? What's a big thing that's going to make, taking that big vacation, or, having perfect kids or whatever. I was looking for these big things to make my life better. And the older I get and the wiser I got, the more I realize it's not the big vacations. It's not all those things. It's the one little thing that you do consistently every single day. So find what works for you, because that's where those small changes come in. And I want you to remember, I want to leave you with this: whether you're a survivor, whether you're a caregiver, whether you're a healthcare worker, whatever hat that you wear, I want you to know that you're wonderful, you're strong, you're a caring person, and remind yourself every day of your strengths. Mindy talked a little bit about protective factors. That's what we've been talking about. All these little things are protective factors that when life gets really, really tough, if you have these protective factors and you've been building these little things consistently in, even that music where you turn that music on when you make supper, all of a sudden you turn that music on, and you know what? That is a protective factor for you. So remember your strengths every day. Know that you're already moving towards resilience, that you took the time on a Saturday to log on and to listen and and to hear from other people. I can't wait to, you know, I hope that you guys would put in some of your ideas and some of your things that you do in your chat box too to help other people. But it's that, those little things and just paying attention that makes you resilient. So thank you. Care for your hearts today and my friends, and know that you deserve that. So thank you very much. Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
In regards of the resilience, is there any research with cancer survivor, like how it affects like remission or the chance to survive cancer?
You know, it's such, when you talk about cancer survival, there's so much because it's so complex and there's so many
Right.
things in there. But we do have research that is, there's a correlation towards it. There's not a direct impact. If you become resilient, you're going to become healthy, or you're going to, but there's all of these research, like the research that I talked about that it improves your gut health. And improving your gut health improves you're able to become healthier because you're able to absorb more of those toxins and stuff at a different level. So there's anecdotal things. My mom is a 4-time cancer survivor. She's the
Wow.
longest living person with pancreatic cancer. She's now in her 11th year. Her doctors
Wow.
finally told her to don't come back because, and when she was originally diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, they told her, you will die of pancreatic cancer. We can do this Whipple surgery. That'll give you 5 years. There's a 1% chance after that you might live over 5 years. And it is getting better now with all they're perfecting the Whipple and they're perfecting things. So people are living longer. But I truly believe in my heart it's because she is this positive person. She's had a lot of things, and she'll say that cancer wasn't the worst thing that happened to her. She had a son
Right.
that committed suicide. You know, she lost her husband during COVID. My dad had Alzheimer's. You know, there's all these things that happen in her life. And she'll say,
Right.
those things were way worse than cancer because with cancer, I knew I could control my mind and I could say, hey, I can get through this. And so while there's not direct research, unless Mindy knows some, that'll say that you do this and you're going to get, you know, it's going to protect you from getting cancer or going to help you heal faster. We do know that these things will help you get through it.
Right.
And that's the main thing. No matter what your journey is, it'll help you get through that.
Right. Thank you.
Good question. I saw your occupational therapist. I have 2 occupational therapists in the family.
Yes. Yeah, I'm both. I'm an occupational therapist, but also a cancer survivor. Just 2 months ago, I finished my treatment. So it took me about, 15, 16 months. And at work, actually, I'm now working in oncology inpatient. So I really feel like it gives me a much better understanding of my patients. And on my ID badge, I'm actually without any hair, and some of my cancer patients catch on to that. And I feel like they value me more also, you know, when I talk with them, more than some other therapists.
It brings you credibility. It also brings them hope.
Yeah.
And it brings them hope that you went through this and now you're back working and you're doing something that you love and you're helping other people. And that's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Tara, did you have a question? You're on mute. So if you have a question,
Yes, please feel free to go ahead and unmute and ask questions. One thing I was wondering, so Dr. Barna, well, back to your initial question when you said, okay, think about this. It was when thinking about a tough time, right? Wasn't it? And how did you get through it? Does anyone want to share what they did?
I will share if that's okay.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm Dr. Mary Van Winkle, graduate of Nebraska Methodist College. So want to share, not exactly tied, well, it is tied to my cancer journey, but fast forward, dealing with many surgeries and that kind of thing. 2 months before I graduated, I lost my husband. Blessed to have Dr. Hannon as my faculty advisor for my doctoral thesis. And ironically, when we first met, Dr. Hannon, can I tell this story?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Hannon was having her implants removed, and I was having tissue expanders put in within the same week. And this is what started our conversation. And I truly feel that God put her into my life for a reason. She has helped me to embrace the journey and find that positivity that you all talk about, the mindset. And, I tell this story working on whatever the 100th rewrite of my paper. I looked up and I had my picture scrolling on my television, and there was my husband looking at me. And I had just said to myself, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'd been through another surgery. But you know what? I looked at him and um, dug down deep, and I'm like, yes, I can. And so I share this not because of my success. I'm just sharing because of what resilience can do. And I'm still on that pathway. And for me, I know it works. And I'm probably the healthiest I have been in the last 20 years because of this journey. And so I just want to share that because in my life, it certainly works. So just want to thank you all very much.
Thank you for that story. I think Jeannie comes into our life a lot. Thank you, Jeannie. But Mary, that's an amazing story. And I remember you at graduation, and I remember hearing your story and getting a hug from you. So you are an inspiration, and we're very, very proud that you're a Nebraska Methodist College alumni. So thank you. Love it. Yeah, love that story. And it doesn't mean, and I want you to know that doesn't mean that you have to be positive every time, because just like Mary was saying, I mean, it was when she was feeling the worst that she had to reach down, and say that, I could do this. My mom was, I remember, I told the story and it's in the Time to Heal book, but my mom cried. One time I came in and I keep telling, she was who I talk about when I talk about resilience all the time. She was part of my story. And she said, yeah, she goes, your story's all wrong. I'm not a strong person. I cry all the time. And so I said, well, how long do you cry? And she goes, I cry every day. I cry all the time. I'm not handling this well. I was hiding it from you like mothers do. And, so she went through that whole thing. And I said, okay, but I'm a statistician. I want to measure how long you cry every day. And I said, so can you track that for me so I can measure it? And before she threw me out the door, she said, she said, yeah, I do. I cry every day. And so I said, but if you quantify that, how long? And you can only cry so long. We've had those days where we've had pity parties. Those are okay. And it's okay because even when you go through tough times, you're going to get down and give yourself permission to stay down. Just say, hey, I need this time to cry. And once you get through the tears, you can only cry for so long. And I said, what do you do after you're done crying? And she says, well, I have to get up and get dressed. I have to do this. I have to do that. I go, then focus on that you got up then. And so if you're crying and you're having that little pity party, we all do, even if we're not going through cancer, because life is tough. Give yourself permission, be gentle with yourself, say that's okay. Because you know what? I'm strong. I can do this. So I loved when you said that, Mary, that you can say, I can do this. Because sometimes it's just that one phrase, I can do this, that'll get you through. I have on my sticky note, I am strong. And so every time I think that I can't do this anymore, I see that one thing, I'm strong. That's all I have to say. I'm strong.
Sometimes it's even in spite of, right?
In spite of.
Yeah, I grew up in the hospital. I was a sick kid, and I would always hear like, "You're not going to be able to," you shouldn't. And so then anytime I was home, I did all the things that they said I wouldn't be able to, or I shouldn't, just to prove a point, that yes, I can. sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes even that negative energy, we can use it to bolster us.
And Mindy, you have an amazing story. How long were you in the hospital when you were a kid?
I spent most of my youth in the hospital, but I would have stays over 100 days long. I was a Shriners Hospital patient, and I had a lot of orthopedic surgeries done. From every time I grew, I would have to have surgery because one of my legs didn't want to grow on its own. So I would have leg lengthening and bone taken from one leg, put in the other. So lots of time. When I was about 15, I was like, we are done growing. I'm an inch taller than my mom. Nobody needs more than that.
Yeah, that's an amazing story for resilience.
Thank you. And Tara, you figured out how to unmute AC. Do you want to ask your question or
finally.
your comment?
Yeah. So this whole thing kind of reminds me from back when I was selling back in college to put myself through college, in sales. They had this thing called sidestep to the solution. And they would say, yeah, go ahead and admit, yeah, this sucks. This is a horrible thing. But let's see how to solve it. Or see if there are steps going forward to at least make it better, or avoid this situation in the future. And that's kind of hard with cancer, because sometimes we get the cancer comes back, or because our friend my friend who's younger than me, she's losing the battle. 5 years younger than me, and she's like 40. And it's hard to see, but what do you do going forward? That's like, and that's kind of been put into my brain since I was in college, trying to put myself through college.
Yeah, that's a wonderful story and a wonderful example of we spend so much time learning other things, but learning how to do that, to reframe things into a different way. I mean, that's something that's so powerful. It's something we're trying to do at Nebraska Methodist College. We talk a lot about mindset training and really reframing things. And you're right, things are going to get tough, but how do you reframe that? How do you change it? And being able to say, this sucks. I saw a back of the Jeep and somebody's Jeep, and they put on there and they said F cancer, and you see t-shirts that say that, and it's true. I mean, we need to get that anger out and say, yeah, this sucks. But then what do you do? So it's a great example, Tara. Yeah, what you learned from sales, but just you could put that into your personal life, and it's so true. I can't imagine being in sales and being told no a million times. You have to be able to have some resilience to stay in it.
Thank you, Tara. Any other questions or comments for Doctors Carlson and Barna? Anyone else want to share? I can share a little bit, Mindy, about your question of, having a hard time with going through a hard time and what helped you. And well, one, like the cancer journey, it was friends and family and support and mindfulness and all of those things. But just recently in the last couple of years, I had a really hard time with something, and a little tiny devotional book was the thing that helped me the most. It was Worry Less, Pray More. And I was so surprised with how this $4 book and reading a little thing each morning and then sometimes in the evening, how it helped me through that situation and just to be at peace, even when I didn't know what the future was going to look like. I was at peace much more in that moment, and it just helped me to be at peace internally. So just little things like Dr. Carlson said to begin with, if you can walk away with one little thing that you can try to make a habit, that can help with your resilience. So thank you both for your message. I will stop the recording, but if anyone else has any questions. Thank you everyone for joining us today too.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.